Okay, guys, it's 4:05, and I'm trying to see. I don't see Laura here and Rafael. I see on my. I got an email notification that Rafael joined the meeting, but I don't see you here from some reason. Oh, let's see. I think okay. Now I can see. I can admit you. All right. You should be in Rafael. Hey, Rafael, how are you? Can you hear me? Okay, here you are. Can you hear
Hi.
me, Raf?
Well, yes, I hear you.
I'm good, fantastic. How about yourself?
Oh, I feel good, feel good.
Awesome. So I don't see other people. I don't see Laura, and I don't know what's going on with Laura. So we're just gonna start the class, and hopefully she will join us. I know Maria from Spain. She cannot join us, so she's gonna be watching the recording. So we're gonna start because I don't want us to lose time. So how was your week, Rafael? How was your home assignment?
Oh, very nice, very interesting. Yeah, because I work, but I do stuff for other people
Mhm.
for my job, and now I create for myself. Now I'm and I write because presently I take an English course
Mhm.
because I'm French, and it's interesting because I wrote writing poetry
Uh-huh.
with my story.
Okay. Yes, that's fantastic. So what kind of work do you do on your daily basis or every day? What do you do?
I work on the next show of Mark Brown. It's
Mark.
the creator of Arthur,
Uh-huh.
and I work on. I'm a lead character builder. I work in Harmony. I create the character rig.
Oh, in
Uh,
3D. You do 3D.
no, 2D
2D rig.
2D puppet for TV show. It's what I do. Yes, I work on Curious George too, like a prop designer.
Oh wow, that's amazing. That's fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, please send me a link. I would love to see your work. I haven't seen anything that you do. I would love to see your work.
Yes, I prepared that.
Okay, so let's see what you created in your home assignment. I'd love to see what you did.
Okay. Now, okay. I'm gonna share my screen.
Yes, let me make sure.
Uh,
Uh,
I
I
think it's you need to
one
us
second.
visible partition. Oh, you
Okay,
need to
I think now you.
alloy the
I did the
okay
multiple. Yeah, now you can do.
screen to okay. Do you see some
Yes, I
oh
see your screen. Yes.
okay. I will begin slowly.
Okay.
Okay, I begin by do it a kind of list for find ID,
Mm-hmm.
and I come with the cactus,
Mm-hmm.
a joy cactus, but for a said cat, I think of a bird, and um, I was an idea to two character helping each other for create a kind of team.
Okay. Okay.
After that, I create a little canary
Uh-huh. That's beautiful.
and a story about two people helping each other, and
Okay.
the canary the sidekick,
Mm-hmm.
but um, they are the same problems. The canary is on it is in cage,
Uh-huh.
and the cactus is fixed on the floor, and they can see the world because they can move each other.
That's beautiful. Okay. So what happens?
uh I can remember to be free. This is a more wet color.
Oh, nice. Did
The
you do it in
cactus.
what program did you use?
Photoshop, Photoshop, but with my scan,
Mm-hmm.
a scan and Photoshop, but I want to maybe made it with Harmony, because I can, if I rig this, I can move and create many picture with my puppet.
Oh, you mean Harmony? It's the program called Toon Boom Harmony?
Yes, Toon Boom Harmony.
Oh, fantastic. Yes, that would be fantastic to animate that. So do you have some kind of a basic story of what happens in this,
Yeah.
what you created?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Let's see. The cactus was planted in the ground. It watched the people of the village dance around. Its arms were reaching to the sky, but it was stuck there and could not fly. A canary in a cage nearby would chirp and sing, so full of life. The cactus felt so sad and blue, it wished to join the people too. The canary had a plan in mind. It chirped and sang to the cactus kind. It said, if you could just get in a pot, you could travel and see the world a lot. The cactus was so happy and glad. It knew it could make the journey it had. It developed his arms and freed the canary, and the canary flew away in glee. The cactus was now in a pot, and it traveled to places it had never thought. It watched the people dance around, and it was happy to be free and sound. That's beautiful. Wow, Rafael, it's really nice. You have a whole little mini children's books right here.
Oh, yeah, I work a lot of this. Excuse me.
Yes.
Okay,
I can-
I use a kind of a thesaurus. It's a kind of dictionary for find a synonym.
Yes, yes. I use it too. There is a website that you can use to find the rhymes. There's a website. It's called Rhymes something, and you put a word, and it shows you other words that sound similar.
Oh,
So it also has thesaurus, but also it shows you rhymes. So it's very good. It's a good tool to use it. It's very helpful. So what did you learn from this assignment, Rafael? What was your experience? Please share.
to find a story, you know, find some, not just a two character, but I never use team THEME team
Theme.
for support the story. I
Mhm.
have a lack in my storytelling. I just create character, but just a structure,
Mhm.
a little structure of what a story can be,
Mhm.
because help me to find, and the list helped me to but I take a lot of time to find, and there are some mistake in my story for now, but it's my first real, because I do stuff for the other, never for myself.
Mm. So it's the first time you did something for yourself, actually.
Yeah,
That's
but
fantastic.
yeah, but
Yes.
until my professional career,
Mm-hmm.
I do a lot for myself when I was a kid, but more constricted.
Mm. So now it's like you're going back to do something you love doing that you haven't done for a long time.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Actually, we're going to have some additional studying today that will give you more tools that you can expand what you created into something bigger. So let me share my screen, and then we're going to get started.
Okay. Oh, will please stop share for. Okay.
Okay, fantastic. So today in week 2, we're going to talk about the power of storytelling, creating a narrative that engages and inspires. So today I would like to talk about understanding the power of archetypes. Are you familiar with the word archetypes, Rafael? You know what is archetype?
It's like a cliche of some people. I don't know.
You could, I don't know if the word cliche is the right word, but archetype is basically a certain kind of personalities. So have you heard about Joseph Campbell? You know who's Joseph Campbell?
Yes, I've ever see that in the class at the university. They are a long time ago.
So Joseph Campbell, he's not alive anymore, but he was an author. And what he did, he basically broke down the entire structure, what it means. You know, when you have a story, what makes a story work? And I'm not, you know, when we talk about children's book, you know, I'm not talking about children's book for like 3-year-olds, for babies. You know, once there was an apple and the apple went to the kitchen, blah blah blah. We're talking about something a little bit more, little more advanced. And you can tell stories with this structure for kids, I would say 6 years of age and up, because once you understand the structure and what really engages people into storytelling, then you can use that. Not I don't like the word formula, because formula is can be very tricky, as we're going to learn a little bit later. I'm going to show a certain formula people use for character design that I want to stay away from. But understanding the what archetypes are is basically there's a journey. And I don't know if you read his book, Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey. Do you know about his book?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So in his book, The Hero's Journey, Joseph Campbell talks about certain structure in a story. There is the beginning of the story. We have a character at the beginning of the story, and I'm going to use my cursor here. So the beginning of the story, the character is in a certain level, emotionally, consciously, even physically, and then he goes through certain stations or different road, certain how do you say in English? Not roadmap, certain points in time and space, until he finishes the story. And at the end of the story, the character is not the same like it was in the beginning of the story. Basically, if your character at the end of the story is the same like it was in the beginning, nobody's gonna like your story. Because just like in life, when you're born, you're going through growth and you're going through experiences. So the myth of storytelling, you want to allow your audience to identify with a certain element that has to do with their lives. Even for children, if you even a child understand that they have to go through certain challenges. You know, kids, they know that if they go through a certain challenge and they attain the goal after the challenge, they feel fulfilled because they earned that goal with their own effort. So the same thing happens in the myth, in the myth of the hero, in the hero's journey. So Joseph Campbell, he studied extensively many different myths from around the world. And I'm going to show a video in a couple of minutes. He explains a certain, he have a lot of videos, and I recommend to study him thoroughly because he have a tremendous amount of information. But one of the things that he talks about in storytelling, which I really love and appreciate, there's a certain level of spirituality in storytelling. What it means is spirituality. It means great story. It's not just about what we see with our eyes. Joseph Campbell always talks about there are certain forces, unseen forces, that they operate, not just in the story, but in our lives. You know, we see things in dreams. Sometimes maybe we meditate. Sometimes we just walk and suddenly some ideas come to us because we're always surrounded by things that we don't see. And Joseph Campbell, he talks a lot about those powers. And there's a lot of different cultures around the world, contemporary cultures, but also ancient cultures. And they use different symbols and different elements to explain to us the dynamics between us and those forces around us, higher forces. And the same with the story, whether it's a Dr. Seuss story and whether it's anything that we spoke about last week, like The Little Prince, etc. The more you offer that kind of level of mystery and mysticism into your story, the more alluring and more inciting it is for the audiences. So let's go just very briefly over those main elements. And again, when I talk about those things, it's not necessarily have to follow here a formula, but it just suggests to you that there are certain elements you want to take into consideration. So what happens at the beginning of the story, there's something happens to the character, the protagonist or the hero, that causes them to go call for adventure. So if the character was living in the city and then something happened, maybe they took a walk and then they met somebody mysterious, and that caused them to go leave the city and maybe go to the mountains or go to the cave or go to the desert or forest, whatever. And the interesting thing is that each and every of those places they go, the journey they go to, is also a symbol for itself by itself. For example, you know, in the Bible, the Israelites, they went from Egypt and they went through the desert for 40 years. You know the story, right? So imagine how this story would be if the Israelites would go for 40 years in the forest. It would be something completely different. The symbolism would be different, because when you talk about the desert, it's something that has no life. So in the desert, you have to find life. So that's one way to look at symbolism of the what kind of environment the protagonist is going to. So desert, so there's the forest, or if the protagonist goes into a cave, for example, imagine they were going to a cave for 40 years. So the cave represents, you can look at the cave as something underneath the ground, so it can represent the subconscious mind. You understand what I'm saying about the symbolism?
Yeah,
There's a very great deal of symbolism when you choose, like for example, you talk about the canary and the cactus. So when you talk about cactus, even the character itself have symbolism. Like for example, cactus is a plant, it doesn't move. That's one thing, but there are many plants that don't move. But when you choose a cactus, nobody can touch a cactus. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So there's symbolism right there. So you can talk about, oh, that cactus, nobody wants to touch them. So maybe their call for adventure is actually to look, not just to see the world, but they're looking for touch, the human for contact. They want some contact, but it's impossible because they have spikes. So you can talk about a certain dynamic of the cactus going to adventure, not just overcoming their inability to move, because plants don't move generally unless it's a story, but also they also have to overcome a certain barrier of physical contact. So that's another symbolism you talk about. Now, the canary, it's a bird, right? The bird can fly, but then you can talk about many other things, that the bird, they have feet, but they don't have hands. So if the canary wants to touch the cactus, first of all, it doesn't have hands. Maybe it can use its wings, but even then, they have to find, what I'm saying is, you have to find a certain dynamic between them. First of all, what will it take for both of them to go to the adventure? Like I'm using your characters as an example because we can use it for advancing your concept. So the call for adventure of the canary and the cactus, they're completely different. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
The reason he's going, the cactus is going, and the bird is going is completely different reasons. And then that's how you want to find in your story what brings them together. So it is maybe they want to see the world, but maybe there's something deeper. Like the cactus wants physical touch. What is the canary wants? Maybe the canary also, it fell from the tree and it doesn't have family. So maybe the canary also wants something like that. So that's one thing to consider. So another element here that Joseph Campbell talks here, at the beginning of the story, there is the known, and then the bigger portion of the story is the unknown. Basically, the beginning of the story, our character are in a familiar environment. It's an environment that they are used to. It can be not just a physical environment, but also a mental environment. You see, they're going outside of their familiar reality into a new reality. That's what makes a story more interesting, because you're taking the protagonist into an unknown reality, and that's how things start to unfold. And that's what engages the audience. Oh, what's going to happen? We're going to something completely different. Like there's a term in filmmaking, it's called fish out of the water. You know, you heard about that?
Nope, nope.
So in films, there are many stories that the character, it's called the fish out of the water. Basically, it talks about how extreme is the transition of the character from their familiar environment to an unfamiliar. Like when you take a fish out of the water, in reality, the fish is going to die. So it shows that the transition from the known to the unknown is very extreme transition. So that's a term you can also utilize in your storytelling. So then we have something called the threshold. Basically, there's something like initiation kind of thing that the protagonists have to go through to move. Threshold is like you're going through a door. So it's like the entrance of the character from, or it's the exit from their own reality to a new reality. And there are here different characters which we're going to talk about on the way. Like there's the helper, there's the mentor, and obviously there must be some kind of a challenge, because if the character is not going through a challenge, it can be a character, it can be a figure, but it can be also physical elements. Like for example, in The Little Prince, there is no bad guy, there is no antagonist. You know what I'm saying? There is no bad guy. And also in the book we talk about The Giving Tree. Remember that book?
Yeah.
In The Giving Tree, there is no tangible bad guy, but there is a challenge, which is time. So time serves as the kind of the challenge that the characters have to face with, because it's like the ticking clock. So the ticking clock is the challenge you have to deal with, because at the end they're going to their death, towards their death, and so they have to accomplish and they have to complete their circle of what they call in storytelling character arc. Character arc is basically what happens to the beginning to the end. So they're working within a time frame, which is the time itself. So that can be like the challenge they're going through. And then there is the transformation that's happening usually here. The abyss is basically, before they go to transformation, in the abyss, they have to go into a certain, what they call the dark night of the soul. The character faces unknown. The character have to deal with some kind of very powerful challenges that will help them to be reborn. Like if you look in your life, you can find situations that you have to go through some challenges. It can be in relationship, it can be in school, in work, whatever it is. And when you face at the beginning that challenge, at the beginning you have no idea what's going on. So you have to kind of adjust yourself. And sometimes you have the mentor or the helper that coming to your aid. This can be physical people, but also can be unseen forces. Sometimes you get some kind of an idea and you don't know where the idea is coming from. So, oh, maybe I should do this. And then you do that. So the helper or the mentor are not always physical, but if you look at your life, this experience actually happened. So that's a great analogy from a life. So from here, from the revelation when the character goes to the dark place, they're going through revelation. They're basically realizing something, then move forward, and that's when the transformation is happening. And then there's a process of called atonement. Atonement is basically, it's taken from Christianity in many ways, or from religion, but it can happen also in children's stories. Basically, the character realizes something about themselves that they did not realize at the beginning, and that's part of their transformation. Like, for example, let's say the cactus. Okay, the cactus realizes after they're going to the abyss and the revelation and the transformation, their atonement can be, never had a touch with anybody, but doesn't mean I cannot be intimate with others. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't touch others, because you're a cactus, it doesn't mean you have to keep yourself in a distance. So that's kind of that can be a revelation, and that can be the transformation, and also the atonement. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Okay. And then there is the return. The return is basically the character returns to their original place where they started the story, but they come back completely different. They're not the same. Okay, so that's generally speaking the hero's journey. Now let's watch this little clip with Joseph Campbell. Let me 1 second. I want to make sure we see that. Hold on. Before I start it, 1 second, I need to open there's another window. 1 second, where it is.
What do you think our souls owe to ancient myths?
Well, the ancient myths were designed to put the mind, the mental system, into accord with this body system, with this inheritance,
A harmony.
of the body, to harmonize.
Do you see that, Raphael? Is it on the screen or not?
the
Yeah,
mind
yeah, yeah. I see.
In strange ways.
It's a YouTube
want
clip.
things that the body does not want.
Hold on.
And The
One
myth,
1 second, I don't see that. I'm gonna see which, I wanna make sure. Okay, we see that. Okay, fantastic. Let me go back. Okay.
into accord with this body system, with this inheritance
A harmony.
of the body, to harmonize. The mind can ramble off in strange ways and want things that the body does not want. And the myths and rites were a means to put the mind in accord with the body and the way of life in accord with the way that nature dictates.
So in a way, these old stories live in us.
They do indeed. And the stages of a human development are the same today as they were in the ancient times. And the problem of a child brought up in a world of discipline, of obedience, and of his dependency on others has to be transcended when one comes to maturity, so that you are living now not in dependency, but with self-responsible authority. And the problem of the transition from childhood to maturity, and then from maturity and full capacity to losing those powers and acquiescing in the natural course of, I say, the autumn time of life and the passage away. Myths are there to help us go with it, accept nature's way and not hold to something else.
The stories are sort of, to me, like messages in a bottle from shores someone else has visited first.
Yes, and you're visiting those shores now.
And these myths tell me how others have made the passage and how I can make it.
And also what the beauties are of the way. I feel this now moving into my own last years, you know, the myths help me to go with it.
What kind of myth? Give me one that has actually helped you.
Well, the tradition in India, for instance, of actually changing your whole way of dress, even changing your name as you pass from one stage to another. When I retired from teaching, I knew that I had to create a new life, a new way of life. And I changed my manner of thinking about my life, just in terms of that notion, moving out of the sphere of achievement into the sphere of enjoyment and appreciation, and relaxing into the wonder of it all.
And then there is that final passage through the dark gate.
Well, that's no problem at all. The problem in middle life, when the body has reached its climax of power and begins to lose it, is to identify yourself, not with the body which is falling away, but with the consciousness of which it is a vehicle. And when you can do that, and this is something I learned from my days, what am I? Am I the bulb that carries the light, or am I the light of which the bulb is a vehicle? And this body is a vehicle of consciousness. And if you can identify with the consciousness, you can watch this thing go like an old car. There goes the fender, there goes this, but that's expectable, you know? And then gradually, the whole thing drops off and consciousness rejoins consciousness. And it's no longer in this particular environment.
And the myths, the stories have brought this consciousness.
Well, I
to
live
our-
with these myths and they tell me to do this all the time. And this is the problem, which can be then metaphorically understood as identifying with the Christ in you. And the Christ in you doesn't die. The Christ in you survives death and resurrects. Or it can be with Shiva. Shiva Aham, I am Shiva. And this is the great meditation of the yogis in the Himalayas. And one doesn't have even to have a metaphorical image like that if one has a mind that's willing to just relax and identify itself with that which moves it.
So that's profound wisdom from Joseph Campbell, because he talks about very, very powerful concepts. They're kind of, pertains to what we're going through in life, but everything is connected to storytelling. And as we're going to learn a little bit further in this class, in this particular session, what kind of elements we want.
I came to this
Oops,
idea of bliss
hold on.
because in Sanskrit, it's
Oops, I don't know why it's keep playing. Stop. 1 second. Let me close this and go back to
The hero journey is the name of this structure.
The hero's journey is the name of the structure, but it's also the name of the book that Joseph Campbell wrote. And also it's a series of videos that you can actually watch on YouTube. Many years ago, I actually had the DVDs, but now you can have basically access to the whole thing on YouTube and watch it. It's extremely powerful because, you know, when George Lucas wrote Star Wars, do you know who was his mentor to write Star Wars?
No.
Joseph Campbell.
Oh yeah.
Joseph Campbell and George Lucas, they were very close friends, and he was his mentor, and he guided him how to write Star Wars. That's how Star Wars became so powerful, because if you study Star Wars, you will understand how George Lucas used all the elements from the hero's journey into his script. It's brilliant. So I highly recommend you to study that, because, you know, unfortunately in our time, do you see the screen, right? You see the slides?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because unfortunately in our times, fortunately or not fortunately, there are not always you can find a depth with spiritual value in what you watch, whether it's video games, children's books, etc. There's a lot of superficiality. They don't always go deep into the really powerful concepts, even if a children's book. And I think once you understand those concepts, and this is one of the things I'm very keen to share with you and the students in this class, is to understand those archetypes. And not to follow them like a formula, but to understand that when you present an archetype, it has power, it has an appeal, and it makes an influence on the people who watch it, especially when these are children, because they're going to grow up and they're going to express those archetypes in what they do, including their own life. And if you look at your own life, actually, you can find yourself, we're going to see more archetypes after that. In whatever stage in your life you are, you can see what kind of archetype you are. This is going to be the next slide. So these are the main 7 archetypes that Joseph Campbell identified in the story. The first one is the hero. The second one is the mentor, or like the guide or the helper. The third one is the threshold guardian. The threshold guardian is basically that character in the story that is preventing the hero from achieving the goal. They're challenging them, so they have to go. It's like they keep. It's the guardian of the gate, so to speak. Then we have the herald. The herald is the character that basically gives them the news of something bigger or something pertaining to the later in the adventure. It gives them some kind of an information. That's called the herald. Then we have the shapeshifter, which can be it's very similar to the trickster, but the trickster, they're kind of very similar characters. I think they're very similar, but the shapeshifter is basically changing their physical appearance. They can be also changing their personality. The trickster is also in a way like the shapeshifter, but it has more a humoristic kind of appeal. And then we have the shadow, which is the villain, the bad guy in the story. So these are the main characters. And then we have 12 types of archetypes according to Carl Jung teachings. Are you familiar with Carl Jung?
No.
Carl Jung was a psychiatrist. He was at the same time of Sigmund Freud. You probably heard about Sigmund Freud, right? Sigmund Freud was an Austrian also psychiatrist and a teacher about the human's mind, and they both were active in the same time. So basically, these 12 archetypes, this is something like you can also compare to the 12 zodiac signs. Like, you know, in the zodiac, in astrology, you have 12 different personalities. So if you are born in the month of June, you have a certain personality. If you're born in the month of October, you have a different personality. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So those archetypes are, again, not formulas, but you can find them in many different stories. Pretty much in every story, you can identify the innocent, and I'm just going to go through this very briefly. The innocent, the motto, or what drives them. The motto of the innocent character is free to be you and me. Their desire, or what is the goal, what are they looking for, is to get to paradise, or they want to reach utopia. Their goal is to be happy. So desire and goal is kind of the same. What is their flaw? They are too trusting because they are too naive. Okay. And if you look at the right side, again, we talk about the innocent. We know the goal is happiness. What is their fear? Is to be punished. And again, these are very general guidelines, but they will make sense once you look at different stories. You can identify those archetypes. The second one is the orphan. Harry Potter, for example, right? He's an orphan. So what is their motto? We are all equal. Their desire and their goal is to be connected and to belong. What is their flaw? They are cynical, and their fear is exclusion, means they're not going to belong into a society. Like, for example, Harry Potter, he wants to belong to the society of the magicians, because you understand, when you go into the hero's journey, there's a certain lack they have. For example, the cactus in your story, what is their lack? They cannot move. Okay, what is their goal? The goal is to see the world. So we're kind of ahead of ourselves, but you can see on the bottom here, in the middle, in the left, the cactus could be the explorer, because the cactus, they want a better life. They want to explore the world. Okay, but you will understand that there are more attributes you can add. It's not just one. You can actually add few of them. Like, so we just spoke about the orphan. Then we have the hero. The hero, their motto is everything is possible. So they're more keen to rely on physical abilities, like a warrior or a soldier or something, like a samurai, things like that. Their desire is to do courageous acts. Basically, again, demonstrate their physical abilities. Their goal is to improve the world. And what is their flaw? Is arrogance. And what is their fear? Is the fear is to be weak, because they rely on physical abilities. Then we have the caregiver. The caregiver is love your neighbor. Their desire is to protect and care and to help others. What is their flaw? Being exploited, because people can abuse their goodwill. What is their fear? Is to be selfish, because basically they are very altruistic in nature. And then again, we have the explorer. Their motto is don't fence me in. Desire exploring the world. Goal is to have a better life. And a flaw, becoming a misfit. And their fear is entrapment. They don't want to be trapped in a certain place. And then we have the rebel. Their motto is to break the rules. Desire is to create a revolution. Their goal is to overturn. And the flaw is the dark side, to be a criminal. Then we have the lover. Their motto is you're the only one. Their desire is intimacy. Their goal is to being in a relationship. Flaw, desire to please all. So for example, you can add that attribute of the lover to the cactus, because they want intimacy, because nobody's touching them, because they have thorns. That's an example. See what I'm saying? So your character can be both the lover and the explorer, and you can mix as many as you want, as long as it makes sense in your story. And then we have the creator, or can be like inventor or scientist. Their motto is to imagine. The desire is to create. Their goal is to realize a vision, and their flaw is perfectionism. Then we have the jester, kind of the clown. Their motto is to live only once. Their desire to live in the moment. Their goal is to have a great time. And their flaw, frivolity, wasting time, basically be too much, not realistic in this reality, and just waste their time. Then we have the sage. The sage, their motto is truth will set you free. Their desire is to find the truth. And the goal is to use their intelligence. Their flaw is afraid of action. Like, for example, your cactus can be a sage. If it's an old cactus, it can have these qualities, because maybe the cactus has been living in this plant for many, many years, and he just doesn't want to be there anymore. So maybe they have desire, this kind of qualities. And for example, one of the things like you want to create in a story, that when you have a relationship, you want to create contrast. So for example, you don't want your cactus and the canary to be same. So if one of them is more innocent, more caregiving, and more emotional, so the other one can be like more physical, more going to adventure. Like the canary can be a hero character, it can be like very outgoing. You see what I'm saying? You want to create contrast between them, because then they can offer to give each other something that the other one doesn't have. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have the sage and we have the magician. Their motto is I make things happen. Their desire is to to understand, and the goal is to realize dreams. And their flaw is becoming manipulative. Okay, so magician can not, it doesn't mean necessarily they can be like a magician in Harry Potter, but it can be also somebody with a vision that is outside of this reality. But magician is an archetype, and it depends on the story. It can work or it cannot work. But you can see it in many different examples, like Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. Pretty much in every fantasy film we see, we always have the magician. Usually the magician and the sage are kind of together. Usually it's combined together. Usually the magician also have the sage quality, but sometimes the magician also can be the bad guy, and it's not necessarily the sage. The magician can be also a rebel. You know what I'm saying? So it's fun. It's really fun to make different combinations. Once you have these understand these archetypes, you can play with them. Like the same with astrology. You know, like a lot of screenwriters, when they write, when they create characters for films, they read astrological charts. Like, for example, a person who's born in the month of Leo have certain qualities, and person who's born in the month of Aquarius is completely different. So they use those astrological charts to use characteristics to put into their stories. It's another tool you can, and it's funny, they both have 12 different archetypes. And then the last one is the ruler, like the king. The motto is power. Their desire is to control. The goal is to create a community, and the flaw being authoritarian. So again, the ruler can be also the magician. The ruler can be also the sage. The ruler can be a hero, because in many cases, and also the explorer. Like you see a lot of stories, like for example, about the Crusades, when the king is going to adventure because they have the hero qualities. Or sometimes the king is also the magician. So there's many different types, many different combinations. It's not just one. It's always more than that. Do you have any questions so far, Raphael?
Not for now.
Not now. Okay, fantastic. Now let's talk about formulas. Like I show this because, you know, in animation and in character design, there are certain formulas. If you look at this, if you see my cursor, the hero is like, usually the body is very muscular. The top part of the body is very muscular and very thin. And there's very like, this can be like the gesture, you know, the creative person. It's like, these are very kind of cliche archetypes, and that's why I put a cross on that, because I want you to stay away from those formulas. I want you to create something of your own. I don't want you to because these are overused, and they keep using them in too many IPs. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So these are formulas that are overused. So I want you to stay away from that. And from what I've seen with your characters, you have your own style and your own language, and just keep going with that. So that's why I want to stay away from those concepts. Now, since we just entered the month of the year of the bunny in Chinese zodiac, I wanted to give an example of rabbit. Like when you design a character, there are so many ways, because you want your character to serve the story. So here you can look at these characters. It has the kind of the innocent look. This one is also the innocent. This one have like the more controlling look. He has it's more powerful physical expression. It can also be a villain. In this case, he's not, but these are, you know, the classical Disney innocent, naive looking kind of female rabbit. This one I forgot from which film, but it has more like of a mature sage kind of personality, etc. So basically, there is like just another, this one of Aardman Animation, the guys from England. You know about Aardman Animation from England?
Yeah.
You're familiar? Yeah. So as you can see, bunny can be many different shapes and forms, and always the purpose is to use, you know, like when you design a product, you know, you heard about the term form follows function. You know, you heard about that?
No.
So form follows function is basically, if you create a function, is basically what you use your design for. So the form will have to serve that design. So if you're creating a cup and you want people to drink from the cup, you have to create a form that would utilize the function. The same with characters. When you create a character, you want a design to serve what's the function of the character. If the function of the character is to make you scared, so you go with this kind of approach. if you want your audience to feel kind of soft and fuzzy, so you go with something like that or something like that. So you want to pay attention what kind of story you're telling, and you want to make sure that your character design serve the purpose. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's go further. Now, this is a very, very important part of what we're going to be covering today, and also in general, is what kind of world your character is operating in. And again, we spoke in the previous slide about the beginning of the story and the adventure, and then going back. So what we see here is basically, like, for example, here, did you see the film Rango, the animation Rango?
There's a long time ago, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite, actually, because the character is a chameleon, and the chameleon, it goes into a world of the Wild West, and he's surrounded by all these really colorful characters. So what we see here, there are 4 different examples of what we call ordinary worlds. Like the Wild West is a very ordinary world. Here in the movie Sing, these characters, they operate within an urban environment in the big city, and they all go to perform in the music context to be performers. So that's, again, it's an ordinary world because we're familiar with this world, and we interact this, we either see that on the screen, and it's a very tangible world. In Ice Age, it's very familiar world because we show animals that basically are going through challenges in the Ice Age. It's familiar world. It's not something not ordinary. The same thing with Zootopia. In Zootopia, we see a bunch of different animals that, again, they represent archetypes of humans, and they operate within the context of the big city. So these are ordinary worlds. Again, I'm not saying which one is, because what I'm going to show you now, these are examples of not ordinary worlds. These are very unique concepts, which I think are wonderful. So let's jump into them. Now, did you see the animated film Soul, Pixar?
No, I don't.
Okay. So this is not homework, but this is homework. Please watch the film. It's
Okay.
brilliant animation, because the story of the movie Soul takes place, takes place in the afterlife. Basically, what happens to the soul when it leaves the body. So we have in the film some really beautiful images that shows that reality, because we don't know how this reality looks like. Even if you believe in reincarnation, maybe you remember what happens between between worlds, before you are born or after you leave this world. But what Pixar did, they created a context of a world. Now, why this is important? Because in this case, when you come up with an idea, I want to create a movie about the afterlife. So the world in that case will define the characters. Like when you talk about the afterlife, you cannot talk about plants, or you cannot talk about things that are not part of this reality. I mean, you can invent plants in the afterlife, but these plants will operate within the context of this reality. You know what I'm saying? So when you create a world which is very unique and very unusual, there are certain rules in this world, like in this reality of the afterlife, where you can see, like for example, on the top left, the characters are transparent. Why they're transparent? Because they're not physical characters. So that's one thing. The second thing is you have a lot of freedom, because you can invent whatever visuals you want. Because you can see here that slide that image I'm showing here.
Yeah.
How do you visualize spirits? There are many spirits. There are old spirits, there are young souls, old souls, there are angels, there are demons, etc. So Pixar basically create here something that is called visual vocabulary. It's a very unique visual vocabulary, and there's a lot of room for exploration, some really, really cool visuals. And I think they actually won an Academy Award, because I think if you ask me, I think this is the Pixar's best animated film so far. And of course, this afterlife reality, it has an interaction with our physical reality. And when you have this kind of interaction between an ordinary world and something which is very not ordinary, you create again a contrast. When you have such contrast in the film, it creates a lot of momentum, because the character is moving from the physical reality to the not physical reality. And in each reality, they look different. Like the main character in the movie Soul is a jazz musician, and he looks physically like this guy. But then when he goes into the not physical reality, that's how he looks like. The only thing that kind of reminds you of him is the hat that he's wearing and the voice, but his appearance is completely different. So that's a great example of going into an unknown reality. In this case, is the afterlife, which is it's a brilliant concept. And then we have the other film again by Pixar. It's called Inside Out. Did you see Inside Out?
Yeah.
So the Inside Out is basically, again, very unique, very unusual world, because everything happens inside a person's mind. So the main characters here are emotions: joy, fear, disgust, anger, and sadness. And of course, each one of them represented by color, represented by physical appearance and expression on their face, and a certain attributes. So basically you have 5 different archetypes here that represent emotion. And within each archetype, there's blend of other things. So if you watch that film again, and you can look at it from the point of view of archetypes, you will notice some very, very unique attributes. But again, this is another example where the world that is being created defines characters. Because if you create the world as what happens inside humans' mind, will you talk about food, for example, or will you talk about cars? So the world defines what kind of things you can talk about. You can talk about food and cars if it relates to what happens inside your mind and how you interact between the mind and the physical reality. You know what I'm saying? So it looks very complicated, but actually it's not complicated, because you create interactions between 2 worlds. The main world is inside the human mind, which again, I appreciate a lot, because it's a very, very unique and very unusual concept. And that's what I like to see with my students, that you can explore those kind of worlds, very unusual worlds. I think it's more fascinating. Again, you don't have to, but it's something to consider. Another great example is the movie Wreck-It Ralph. Wreck-It Ralph happens inside the computer and the internet. Did you see that one?
Yeah, this is my favorite, I think.
Yeah, it's brilliant, because in Wreck-It Ralph, again, they created what happens inside the computer, what happens inside the internet. And there is so many opportunities. Basically, you can show anything, because the internet is a reflection of our reality. So if you sit at home, you want to see a certain place, like you want to see what happens in Hawaii. So you go inside the computer and you can see on the screen. So in the computer, when you go inside the computer and the internet, you can basically show anything. In this case, they show a lot of characters from video games. They show different, food like candies, etc. So there's a lot of room. It's very, very rich world. And again, it's very unique and very original. And I think that's beautiful. Again, very unusual world. And that's another example. This is a book from Scandinavia. Actually, I grew up on this book when I was a kid in Israel. It's called Carius in Bactus. It's about story about what happens inside our mouth. It's about bacteria in our mouth. These 2 characters are bacteria. So this entire book was created for the purpose to educate children about hygiene in their mouth. So when you see those characters, when you are a child and you watch those characters, you think, oh my God, look what happened inside my mouth. I should be very, very careful what I put inside the mouth, because otherwise I'm going to have those Carius in Bactus inside. There's a whole world that's going to happen inside my mouth. So that's, again, very, very unusual world and very unique, but also it creates some very great opportunities for educational, for example, because you want to educate something. So you create this kind of world for the purpose of education, which we're going to see also talk about that further in this class. And then we have another great example of unique world is Flushed Away, which you saw by Aardman, because the entire story happens in the toilet and in the sewage. It's a very, very unusual world. And in this case, the context of the world gives us opportunity for a lot of humor, because kids like toilet humor, poop and all kind of things like that. So when you tell kids this kind of story, it brings about a lot of humor, and this movie is very funny. But beyond the humor, it gives opportunity to a lot of visuals, because if you go inside the sewage, you can find anything there, because everything that can happen, everything you throw into the trash can become an element and an item that you can utilize for the design. So this gives us a lot of beautiful opportunities for inventing things that you mix different objects that you find in the sewage, and you create an architecture. So again, this in this case, the world defines the characters because inside the sewage you can find mice or rats, you can find slugs, snails, frogs, things like that. You cannot find a lion in the sewage, right? You cannot find birds in the sewage. So when you create this kind of world, you are confining certain characters that have to operate within this world. Does it make sense? Okay. So now let's watch a couple of clips. Now let's first of all watch a clip from so let me make sure I'm sharing the screen. 1 second. 1 second. Let me rewind it a little bit. Just give me a second. So in this scene, we're going to see how they transition from the physical reality into the other dimensions, the afterlife or between worlds. Now he goes into the other reality. Both the cat and him. And that's how you see his soul, actually. That's how they visualize the soul, both of them. He's trying to go back into the physical reality, but now he's trapped. Got the pass to go back to life. Okay, so that's a beautiful film. I highly recommend it to watch. Now let's go and see another example. Now we're going to watch example from Wreck-It Ralph. Hold on 1 second. Oh, 1 second. Okay.
Dude, I don't think we're in Litwax anymore.
Certainly are not, friend. We are in the internet. Come on, Ralph!
Holy cow! Look at all this stuff.
Whoa. This is the most beautiful miracle I've ever seen. But it's so big. It goes on forever and ever. How are we possibly gonna find eBay out there, Ralph?
Kid, don't worry. Sure, there's someone out here to give us directions. Oh, look at that little egg guy. He's got on one of those hats that smart people wear. I bet he can help us. Come on.
So this is really beautiful, beautiful example again, how you create a whole reality that we don't actually doesn't really exist in this case. It's, you know, it's not a reality that we actually live inside. It's something we use as technology. But you can see how many visual opportunities, first of all, we have when we create this kind of world. And again, it emphasizes the relationship between your characters and in what kind of environment they operate. So if your cactus and your canary are going inside the internet, it's one thing. If they're going into the afterworld, it's a whole different interaction. So you want to think into what world, first of all, what is the world they started the story, and into what world they're going into their adventures, into to go through the transformation. And I think the more contrast you create between the who they were in the environment at the beginning and what the environment they're going into, the more contrast you create, the more interesting of a story it's going to be. Like if they are, for example, living in an apartment and they're going into, let's say, you know, like in Narnia. You know, in Narnia they open a closet and they go into a magical world. So that's something completely different, a world of magic. Or if they go, let's say, the cactus live in inside some kind of a nursery, and it goes outside the nursery, going to the forest. It's things like that. So you want to think about the contrast to create in these kind of stories, and these are great examples. Now let's watch a third clip from the movie Flashed Away. Let me just upload it. One second.
Experts say that 73% of household accidents happen with one particular room.
You see me, my friend. You see my dad?
So Shrek and Madagascar comes the story of a pampered pet mouse and his first time out of the house.
What is this place?
It's an amazing world right under our feet.
It's a real city.
But there's one thing he knows.
I have got to get home. Tin of the Jammy Doctor might be able to help you.
Now
Hello, handsome.
he's making a deal,
Your own hand.
getting involved
Boss, we're back.
with the wrong crowd.
He's a madman. Get away.
Here, he's being chased.
You may now kiss the bride.
Back home, the size of that monster, he's being replaced.
I will be the best pet ever.
Rodents. And the mouse who's never been on his own is learning to face danger on a fantastic journey home.
There are things I want to do, sights I want to see. That's not one of them.
Stay, you idiots! All right, boss. Keep your legs straight when you hit the water.
Leg strikes, but
Flushed away.
I think I could learn to like this place.
So this is example of again a great example of contrast, because the beginning of the story, the character begins, they live in luxury, they live in a very luxurious house, and then within a few minutes they go into a completely new reality. They're in the basically in the sewage. So not only that the environment, the world defines the characters, but also the world defines their transformation. Because if a character starts in luxury, they live a life of luxury, they have, like living in a palace, and they're basically going down the toilet, what kind of transformation they're going to go through? In this case, you can think about what it means to be humble, right? Like if they used to be very wealthy and they lived in a palace and they suddenly find themselves in the toilet or in jail or something like very dirty, it means the character needs to go a transformation that have to do with their pride. You know what I'm saying? So it's another thing to keep in mind, that the world or the adventure that the characters go through will define what kind of character transformation they're going to go through. Another thing to think about. So if this story was happening in the desert, for example, this mouse or rat have to go into the desert, it's not necessarily will emphasize the process of realizing what it means to be humble. Maybe in this case, it will be what it means to be self-reliant, what it means to survive, to be a fighter, to trust yourself, things like that. So when you think about the world, the context of the world is also the world will define the transformation of the character. Let me go back to the slides. Do you have any questions, Rafael?
No,
Okay.
I just take note.
Okay. You also have the recording, so you can also later watch the recording again and etc.
But maybe the next time I will have some questions. They have to come in my mind.
Yeah, and also feel free, if you have during the week you have questions, you can email me anytime.
Okay.
If something comes to mind, just feel free to email me, and I'm more than happy to answer. So okay, now let's talk. Now we're gonna do a set up professional audio. Okay. Now let's talk about a world that defines characters. We're gonna do a little exercise. So first of all, I'd like to show an example of something that I created. I was working on this animated project with Disney TV some years ago. It's called Sushi Avenue. So I created the world of sushi characters, and everything happens inside a world of sushi. So everything is made of sushi. So everything is food. So I'm going to read the quick synopsis explanation. Where a mind-melting battle of etiological, it means something from zoology that has to do with fish. Etiological proportions has just begun. In an alternate universe inadvertently created by junior sushi chef Mika and Douglas, a fantastical world where sushi live and breathe. The brave science Maki and the evil dark Nagiri fight alongside their creators as the fate of the real world hangs in the balance. So basically what I created here is an alternate universe made of sushi. But what happened, how this alternate universe interacts with our real reality? The protagonists of the story are two kids, a girl and a boy. And what happens, they create sushi characters that come to life. So the whole adventure happens inside the sushi world. But the sushi world, because it's a parallel universe, it affects the real world. So the drama that's taking place inside the sushi world is very critical, because this is going to influence the reality. So that's kind of the world I created. And you can see below here some of the inspirational images. When I was doing research, you can see this alligator. His head is made of wasabi, etc. And those little bowls of rice with those spikes of cucumbers, which you can see in this character, like I did here. And these are little cats, and the caterpillar, which you can also you can see those. Where's the caterpillar? Is right here. You see where it is? Yeah. So I created a world that defines characters, and out of this world, the characters that I play with basically will interact and go through different adventures. So what I want you to do right now, I want you to come up with a world, I want you to come up with a very, very unique world, just something very spontaneous. And I want you to write a short paragraph about this world and the characters, what happens inside this world. Can be anything. And don't worry if it's not perfect. I just want you to be very spontaneous and just write something very short, okay?
Okay.
Okay, I'll give you a few minutes. I'll be right back. Let me know when you're ready, Rafael.
I have a very short short text.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, it's the first idea. Imagine a clay world. Everything is soft. The chairs are made of clay. It's good when you're an articulated papier mâché character. Nothing is really solid.
So it's a world made of clay.
Clay, like yeah, clay.
Okay. Okay, fantastic. That's a great start. Like when you so when you take, so what's the context? Like when you say world of clay, like let's say you tell a story, it's a world of clay, but perhaps like in the Sushi Avenue, this world of sushi is made by chefs. So maybe you create, what's the context of the world? You know what I'm saying? Because in every clip I showed you, for example, in Wreck-It Ralph, they start in the real world and they go inside the world of the internet. Or in Flushed Away, there is the luxurious home and they go into the sewage. So what's the context of the clay world, for coming from where to where? You know what I'm saying? You understand my question?
Oh yeah, you came. Imagine you're a solid character.
Okay.
It's hard to live in the clay world because all is soft and broke.
Mhm.
This is the first idea.
Okay. Well, let's think about it a little bit more, because I want this idea to have a little bit more kind of spice, to be a little bit more, interesting. So let's say, let's think about clay. Like when you think about clay, maybe there's a art studio, and there's artists to create things from clay. Like for example, if you take Toy Story, for example, right? There are toys who come to life. So imagine those clay characters, they come to life. So you can show like there are characters that are soft and their characters are hard, but you want to think about something a little bit more than that, to have some kind of something more engaging into the audience, so it's going to be a little bit more interesting. So obviously you offer here a contrast between soft and hard. What are the things you think you can play with besides soft and hard?
The be delicate.
Delicate. Also, you can talk about creation, because clay, there is the raw material and there's something that you create. So there's the potential and there's the manifestation. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Because when the clay, like when God created, like in the story of the Bible, when God created humans, it's almost like it created them from clay. It's from nothing into something. So maybe you can talk about two different worlds before they take shape, and what happens when they take shape. So the context of clay gives you the opportunity to play with potential versus manifestation. So the analogy of clay, the one thing that comes to mind is creation. Like we create things with our hands. It's like clay, like we are like the creators. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Okay, so that's something to think about. So let's continue. Now let's continue this exercise. Pick two characters, archetypes from the world. I'm going to go back to the archetypes list. I want you to come up with two characters, and I want you to draw them. Like for example, on the left we see the innocent. So that's the archetype I chose, the innocent and the explorer. So I'm going to go back into the list of archetypes right here. Okay, so I want you to choose two archetypes that have to do with your world that you created, and I want you to draw them. Okay,
It's they live in the clay world, or they have to be outside and
whatever you want.
okay.
Whatever you want. One second. Lila is trying to get into the meeting. Take your time, Raphael, no rush. I want to give it some thought. I'm gonna, in the meantime, I'm going to send the link to the artist student because she was trying to join like 15 minutes ago. So give me one moment. Let me know when you're ready, Raphael.
Yeah, I just draw one.
Okay, keep going. Take your time. I think Lila should just join us.
I'm in class, honey.
Hey, Laura, can you see? Can you hear us?
I can.
Oh,
Yeah,
finally.
for s- Hi. Yeah, for some reason the link wouldn't work. I don't know what was going on.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, I
did you-
tried like 8 times.
when did you?
That's
when did-
okay.
what time did you try to get in?
I started at about 5 or 6.
5 or 6. Okay.
Yeah.
So you missed.
That's okay.
Okay, well, you can watch the recording because we have everything recorded,
Yeah, that's fine.
so no worries. Okay, let's go back to our slides. So what we're doing right now, we're doing exercise that we are. It's gonna little bit too much for you to catch up, but we basically spoke about archetypes, and then I'm gonna just go briefly while Raphael is. It's a good opportunity. Raphael is doing a couple of drawings. Basically, we spoke about Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. You familiar with Joseph Campbell?
Oh, very, very familiar. Yes.
Okay,
One
excellent.
of my heroes. He's my
Same.
hero.
Yeah, same here. So we spoke about Joseph Campbell's hero journey. We discussed the different elements in the journey that pertain to the what happens to the character at the beginning of the story, and what happens through the story, and what happened at the end. Basically, the character who started the story is never the same though to come back at the end of the story. So
Right.
we talk about the different elements of through the journey, transformation, mentors, etc. And then we covered what are the main archetypes that Joseph Campbell shows in his books, and he talks about the 7 archetypes. And within those archetypes, what are the 12 archetypes within the protagonist, which is according to Carl Jung, there are 12 hero archetypes. So we have the innocent, the orphan, etc. So you can go through that later and to see how those characters in different shapes and forms and even in combinations, they appear in every story that you see. Even if it's a children's book, unless it's like for toddlers, for like 3-4 years old, it does not apply. But usually ages 6 and up, they start to kind of materialize those archetypes. And the interesting thing is, it's never just one of them. It's always a combination of 2 or even more. It can be the innocent and the usually in the rebel, they're not going to go together, but the innocent can be also the explorer. The innocent also can be the orphan. Like Harry Potter is the orphan, is also the innocent. but he's also the explorer. So, and he is also the magician. So there's many different combinations that it's very good to explore. And then we talked about what are different formulas that are used in children's storytelling, which that's the reason I crossed it, because I want you to stay away from formulas. Like there's always like the cliche of the hero, like he's muscular, blah, blah, blah. I want you to stay away from those things. Raphael shared some really beautiful artwork that he created for his characters from the home assignment, which are very unique and are in his own style. And this is exactly what I want you to do. And maybe, do you have something to share with us that you did?
I do. I have two things. One, it was just a start, but I don't know if you can see me. Like, I don't know how to, is there like a, do I have to, I'm not great with Zoom. So do I just hold it up?
Yeah, just hold it to the camera, like
Okay.
wherever, just put it to the camera.
So
wow.
where is the,
Wherever-
where's the gallery?
No, not gallery, not
I guess-
gallery, just whatever is
Okay.
the eye of the camera. That's okay. Just hold it how you did before. A little bit lower, and to the left, left. Yeah, perfect. So tell us, what did you, that's a beautiful painting. What is that, Laura?
So remember I was telling, can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, so remember I was telling you I want to put the clay figures onto the art.
Uh-huh.
So this is the shamanic story, you know, of the little girl, and she shapeshifts into the different animal creatures.
Uh-huh.
So this is her as a whale.
Mhm.
I don't know if you can see this. I can't
I
tell.
see, I can see, I
Okay.
can see. No, I can see everything.
Okay.
I see it pretty well.
So I was starting to play with, because I'm very kinesthetic and I like to be able to feel art. I like collage and things like that. I'm thinking I want to do like a collage children's book where they
Beautiful.
can feel it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I started working on some characters. I have the story, but I don't want to take up too much time, but I just you know, I've been working on this book for 20 years, so it's a
So
long
do you
time.
have, why don't you tell us the synopsis, like briefly, what's the synopsis?
Okay, yeah. So what it is she comes from a domestic violent home, and she's a Hawaiian girl. She's about 14.
Okay.
And so she uses her imagination. I have a psychology background. So she uses her imagination to go into, she meets all these different, well, it's a long story. I'm trying to figure out how to shorten it. She meets a mentor, and he's a shapeshifter. He's a magician. And she falls down this cliff in Hawaii, and then she meets this dragon, and he's shapeshifted into a dragon. That's one of his favorite, but she can, when she takes the potion, she can change into any animal form.
Mm-hmm.
So in this part of the story that I was showing you, that she's underwater, and I don't even know what that is, you know, that creature.
Mm-hmm.
It could turn into an octopus or a, I don't know, maybe it's in the process of shape-shifting, you know, like it's an
Okay.
amoebic form. So anyway, long story short, she learns from all that. She goes and joins all the pods and all the different, the first volume is just sea creatures, and then she goes to Africa, and she becomes all these African creatures. But the basis of the story is that she's learning her connection to nature, and
Mhm.
and she's also learning from each species how to survive in in a challenging world, and to identify as a young woman to become empowered.
Mhm. So if you look at those archetypes, what would you say her main archetypes?
Oh, she's probably every single one of them, because I want it to be broad, because she's definitely an explorer, an adventurer, scientist, a rebel. You know, she runs away from home. That's how this all started. And she's a survivor. You know, I teach archetypal psychology. I was a college professor. That was part of my schooling that I taught. And so I think it's really, really elemental. I'm so glad you're doing this, because to me, this is like the core of the foundation of some of the work I do.
Mhm.
So it's perfect. You know, she's the lover, the creator, the ruler, the magician. She's everything.
Okay, now thank
Yeah.
you. Now let's I'm gonna talk about a few things that are gonna pertain to the adventure, but before I continue, like, you want to think about the archetypes of that you said she's all of them, but obviously you don't want her to be all at once. So you want to
No,
think about what kind of changes or transformations she's going through the story that make her who she is, because you obviously don't want her to be all of those at the beginning.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe she's not, maybe she's innocent at the beginning, or maybe she's not
Yes.
innocent, and maybe because of what happened to her, she became completely opposite. She became jaded, so
That's right.
she reconnects to her innocence. So what I'm saying is, you want to structure your story, and we're going to talk about worlds in a minute. I'm going to kind of recap. You want to talk about what she's going through, because that's going to define her transformation. Okay.
Right. Yep.
Now let's talk about again. We talk about those formulas, and now we're looking at the different visual approaches, because I just use bunny because we are in the Chinese New Year of the rabbit right now. So we have many different approaches. So you heard the term form follows function. You heard about that, right? So
I'd like you to explain that more.
So let's say let's say you're a product designer and you design a chair, okay? So the function of the chair is to somebody to sit on it. So the form have to follow the function. So you have to design a chair that somebody can sit on it. So it doesn't matter
Right.
how you're going to design, the main thing is to sit on it. That's the
Right.
first thing. The secondary thing, you also to make it like a visual object. So you want to also to make it look nice. But the looking nice cannot be at the expense of the sitting on the chair. So what I'm saying
So
is,
how does that relate to a children's book?
I'm going to explain. So when you design a character, your character serves a certain function. And we're going to talk about different functions, because I didn't get there yet, but we're going to talk about meaning and also purpose. So what do you want? Like, for example, I would imagine that your character, you want to inspire young girls to empower them, or you want to empower girls who went through abuse to get over, heal their past, etc. So obviously, if you look at character like that, you see that on the bottom right here, Laura, that character right here.
Mhm.
So that's kind of scary character, is very grotesque. So maybe he's not going to serve that purpose. In other words, the design of your character needs to convey what's the purpose and how it's going to convey the meaning of the story and the message of the story. Okay, so that's what I mean here. Then we spoke about worlds. Like, there are certain worlds in storytelling, there are ordinary worlds. Like in this animation, this was the Wild West. It's a familiar world. In this case, it was a music contest. Right here is the Ice Age, and right here is an urban metropolis. These are very familiar worlds that we know as human beings, and most of them we actually interact, or we used to interact in the history. But here we have very unique worlds that are actually completely new. Have you seen the film
I
Soul?
have seen these.
Okay.
Yep.
So
Mhm.
Soul is brilliant because it's the afterlife. How do you design afterlife? And the other thing we have to take into consideration when you create a world, the world defines what kind of actors you're going to have in this world. Like, for example, if you create the afterlife, you can pretty much, you can express visually any soul, but you're not going to talk here about hamburgers, or you're not going to talk here about Lego toys, because it's not related. So
Right.
the world creates some kind of rules, can create some kind of a visual vocabulary, and you want to play within the rules that you create in this world. Okay.
Right.
In this case, Inside Out, it's about emotions. Again, Pixar. And these are, have you seen this one?
No.
So
Mm-mm.
this is a Pixar film that talks about what happens inside our mind, talks about emotions. So we have joy, fear, disgust, anger, and sadness. So again, the design of the characters have to serve their emotion, their character. Okay, so that's another example how the world defines the characters. In this case, Wreck-It Ralph, it's about two characters that go from the going to adventure from the real world into the world of internet and the computers. And again, there is a lot of room for playing with the different visuals, like going through different websites, different companies, etc. It's very rich world. It's a beautiful film if you haven't seen it. And then we have example of this book called Carius and Bacchus. It's about book about what happens inside your mouth. These are about bacteria inside our mouth. So it is designed to teach children about dental hygiene.
No,
So
okay.
there's a purpose here too.
Okay.
Then we have the film Flushed Away, that it's all about characters that are going into a journey into the sewage, inside the sewage. It's very fun. It's British humor, but it's very fun. It's very rich, and obviously you can see the architecture here follows function, because what kind of garbage can you find in a sewage? Pretty much anything. So a helmet can become a kiosk. these guys are riding on those thing that you use for mixing. I don't know how do you call it. So basically, again, you have a lot of room to play with different ideas here. So we watch a couple of clips, which you can see later on the replay.
I just
Laura.
have to go get some paper. I'll be right back.
Okay. So let's wait for Laura so you can share your drawings, Rafael, okay?
Okay, I'm back.
Okay. So this is, we did a couple of exercises and you can do it on your, after you watch the whole thing. Basically, what Rafael did, he created a unique world. And the world that, Rafael, do you want to repeat, tell Laura, what is the world you created?
It's for the exercise.
Yeah.
I create a clay world.
Beautiful,
Nice.
beautiful. So,
Yeah,
and what happens inside this world, Rafael? Tell us a little bit more about the world.
beautiful. I love it.
This about the character or just the world? The world is
First of all, the world and then the characters. Yeah.
It's a beautiful world. All is in clay, made in clay. It's very fragile world because clay is fragile and can be destroyed easily. And yeah, it's very beautiful world. It's like an artistic, very creative world. All is possible.
So all is possible. Beautiful.
I've
So
never seen sushi. That's amazing.
So this is the, yeah, I was talking about that. This is a project I was working with Disney TV some years ago. Basically, I created a whole world made of sushi. So the context of the story as children who are sushi chefs, they're creating characters and they battle in this alternate reality that is all made of sushi. So first of all, this is an example of a world that creates context because everything that happens here is made of sushi. That's one thing. Now, the other thing is, we spoke about it earlier with Rafael, when you create a world, you want to create some kind of a contrast or some kind of difference between the real world and the sushi world. It doesn't have to be always the real world. Like it can be like the world of clay, for example, that Rafael created versus the world of something else. And the more contrast you create, the more you create not just a character arc, which means the character going through transformation, but you also create a story arc because the world is changing too. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And then what we did is I asked to choose two archetypes. Like these are archetypes from my project, and this is the innocent and the explorer. And now Rafael is going to show us his drawings of his two characters.
Yeah.
Okay, go for it, Rafael.
Do you see my screen?
I see. If you can zoom in a little bit or show a little bit closer, it's a little bit small. Okay,
I don't see my camera. That's what is tough. Oops, excuse.
Okay, if you can just hold it a little bit closer to the camera, just lift it a little bit so we can see that a little bit better. Perfect. So we see an angry girl and a guy with a mustache, right?
Yeah, this is the explorer. Hero and explorer. You want take a photo, takes photo, and he appreciate very well the world. And this is like a clown, a buffon. He just want to destroy. He's not the bad guy because he is so stupid. He just broke. But I think he can duplicate himself.
So tell me, first of all, beautiful drawings. Now, please
Yeah,
tell
I
me,
like it, Raphael. It's great.
how do those characters relate to the world of clay? How do you operate within this world?
I think it come from the digital world.
Okay.
But it's better to be the inverse, but it create from the digital world and fall into a kind of clay world. They are character. They are articulated character.
So who created those characters? Do you know? Have you thought about who created them?
I don't know.
So this is something for you to think about. So if these characters are made of clay, you want to think about other characters, that who created them, and then you create even more a relationship between the creator and what they created. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like in Sushi Avenue, the creators are the sushi kids, the chefs, they create, and the sushi characters are what they created. So there is a certain dynamics between them. There is interaction between them. There's between the creator and the createe, but also within the story, there is two levels of interactions. There is like sushi chefs interact with each other, but also the characters themselves interact with each other. So there's like two realities that's working together. Does it make sense, Rafael?
Mhm.
So that's something for you to think about. So let's continue. Now let's talk about something very, very important. I want you guys to really.
Can I interrupt for just a second?
Yeah.
There was something else I wanted to show you before you go on. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if you can see this. Is there a
Yeah.
way to get on gallery
On your,
or like
Well,
add things? I don't know how to
if
do
you-
this.
you have to do screen sharing on your iPad if you know how to do it. It says it's in the Zoom menu on the bottom. It has a share screen. If you go at the bottom,
You have to allow it though.
I do allow it.
Oh, you do?
Because-
Okay.
Yeah, because Rafael, everybody can share. You can share your
Okay.
screen right now. If you go in
I
the
wish I
menu,
knew how to do that because there's a lot of stuff I'm gonna want to show. So
in the
I can
bottom,
s-
in the bottom of the screen of the Zoom, there are like
Yeah.
different green buttons. One of them is says share your screen. Just click it and it's going to share your screen.
Yeah, I don't have that. Let me see. It has a pencil. That's all it has. Maybe it's because I'm on, oh shoot, are you there? Okay, I'll just show you, okay?
Okay.
But real quick, okay? But
Okay.
this is, remember the sea creatures? I don't know if you can,
Yes, yes.
okay?
Looks
And
like
then
yellow
she-
submarine.
It's a sea ray.
It's a sea ray. What is a sea ray?
A sea ray is like you know what electric eel is?
Mhm.
Like the eyes and the mouth,
Mhm.
and that's its tail like a stingray.
It's beautiful. It's really
Thank
nice.
you. And then there's going to be another part where she's going to work with the trees.
Uh-huh.
So she's going to transform into a tree.
Mhm.
You see her?
Yes. It's a very beautiful tree.
And then she's going to work with the like animals of, like the wildlife of United States or something, right?
Mhm.
And then this is her in the transformation stage.
Wow, this is really cool.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
So anyway, I just wanted you guys to see that, and I really want to be able to see Raphael's work too. But I just don't know how to do the Zoom. Maybe it's because I'm on an iPad. Is that why?
I don't know how the iPad. I think the iPad should have a screen share. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm using a laptop, so I don't know how it works. Are you using a computer too, Rafael, or an iPad?
I'm on a computer.
On a computer. So I don't know how it is on an iPad, Laura. So maybe. Oops, sorry, my dog. Sorry. So
It's okay. I'm gonna go to my computer. Maybe that will help. But
you will have.
I'm with you. You can keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just really want to
Okay.
have that access to.
So this is something very important I would like to talk to you before we end the class. We have about 15 minutes. So now we talk about something very important, which is storytelling. In storytelling, purpose versus meaning. Again, form follows function, because just in life we have purpose in life. Everybody have a certain purpose, and then also there's the meaning. The meaning is the value. So let me go read it. Purpose. So what kind of purposes can we utilize in storytelling? There's some noise there, Laura.
Sorry.
Okay.
I don't think that's me.
Yeah. Okay. So
Anyway.
there are different purposes that we can explore in storytelling. One is to entertain. Second one is to educate. The third one is to inspire. The fourth one is to engage, which means engage is like you want to create some kind of relationship with the viewer. And then one is to empower. Then we have to influence. And then we have to invoke thought. That's different purposes for which you can utilize your stories. And they can be all of them in a story. Any of them or all of them, it's up to you. So the meaning is what value you offer in what you create in your audiences. For example, Rafael, can you give me, if you talk about the world you created with the clay, what's the purpose out of this list you would say like your story would be?
Only to entertain.
Just to entertain. Okay. So what's the meaning you want your audience to receive from your story? What's the value you want them, like after they watch your read your book or watch your cartoon, what do you want them to take from that?
To be careful with the beautiful thing, beautiful heart.
Okay, which means it's be careful with something very delicate because it can be very fragile, right?
Yeah.
So your purpose is not just to educate. I think your purpose is also to invoke thought, is to inspire, and also to empower. So you actually have much more purpose than what you think. It's not just to entertain. Entertaining is good. It's very important because if it's boring, nobody's going to watch it. But I think because you want to teach them something, very valuable lesson, obviously you have a higher purpose. Okay? Does it make sense, Rafael?
Yeah.
And what about you, Laura? If you look at your book right now, what is the purpose of your book?
I would definitely say all of them.
All of them. Excellent. What is the meaning? What is the value you want to create in your audience?
You can accomplish anything you want, even if you are different. So she's different in the sense that, you know, she comes out of a domestic violent home and she has to cope. And so her imagination, you know, I guess that's, I don't know if I'm answering this correctly, but she uses the imagination to find her way in the world.
So the meaning is if you use your imagination, you can accomplish anything in the world. Beautiful. Right. Excellent. So you already read the description of of this book of How to Train a Dragon. The purpose is to entertain, to empower, to inspire, and to influence. And the meaning, you can accomplish anything you want, even if you are different, if you persist and invest the time and energy. So in this case, training a dragon is a metaphor, or it's an analogy to something you do in your life to accomplish. You have to, it's something that's it's very wild and it's hard to tame. So if you persist, you can accomplish. So that's how you teach. That's the value you give to audiences. Like in the Lorax, for example, the purpose is to entertain, but also to educate. Educate about what? About the importance of trees. It's also to inspire and to influence. Now, influence is a very interesting one because influence is like what's the call for action. In this case of the Lorax, let's say you watched it as a kid and said, you know what, trees are important. So you are influenced to go and maybe start planting trees, or maybe volunteer in the community garden, things like that. So that's called to influence, and also to empower, because you're now empowered because you know you can do certain things, you can make an impact on your community and the world. So the meaning is you can make a difference in the world or your community if you care for and protect its valuable resources. That's the meaning of the Lorax. Okay. Now let's take two more examples of the giving tree. The purpose is to invoke thought, to inspire. Thought about what? About life. What does it mean? What kind of relationship we have life? To invoke thought about, to evaluate our relationship. Okay. And what's the meaning? Life is precious and we should appreciate the relationships we have and nurture our relationships by giving, because it's a giving tree. It's showing like by giving what kind of relationship you have, because if your relationship is based just by taking, it's not going to work. So this is a great example, by the way. This book is not designed to entertain at all. There's no entertainment in this book at all. So that's example how a story can be not entertaining at all, but it's in a way it's very thought-provoking. So the thought and the emotion are much stronger than entertainment. You can do both, but that's a great example of that. And now the Little Prince, the purpose is to invoke thought, to inspire. Thought and inspire what? About the meaning, which embrace your own uniqueness and identify an identity and don't become jaded as you grow up. So in the story, Saint-Exupéry is inspire us to look at our life as adults. If you read the book as an adult, because if you read the book as a child and an adult, you see completely two different things. So if you look at it as an adult, what's the meaning for you? The meaning is to reconnect to your inner child. That's a very powerful meaning. And again, not so much on the entertainment level, more about thought and inspiration. Now, these are another two examples about something completely different. In this case, this is a book on the left, My Shadow is Pink. The purpose is to influence, to inspire. Influence about what? Is teaching kids how to become transgender. Okay, I'm not supporting or I'm not saying anything against it. I'm just saying that's another kind of books there's out there, teaching kids about how you, if you are a boy, why don't you become a girl? Okay, So some people will be very against that. Some people support that. I'm just saying this is an example how they influence children from a very young age. Okay. And what's the meaning? The meaning is it is okay to change your gender. Okay. Even if you're 5, you don't even know what is a gender, but it's okay to change it. Okay. That's the kind of the meaning they have in this book. In this case, a book about Jesus, the purpose is to influence. Influence what? To begin to believe in Jesus. So this book is very have an agenda. The agenda of this book is to make you a good Christian. Okay. So there are books with very clear agenda, obviously. Okay. So the meaning is Jesus is your Lord, and you should embrace and follow him. Very simple. Okay. So these are examples of many different a whole spectrum of purposes and meanings. Okay. Now, this is when I leave it to the homework, because we don't have a lot of time. This is basically, I want you, in addition to what you're going to be doing in the homework, to write down the purpose and the meaning of the world, the story you created. So, Laura, if you're already working on your book, I want you to write down what's the meaning and what's the purpose and what's the meaning. So I just show here the example of Sushi Avenue. The purpose is to entertain, to empower, to inspire, and to influence. The meaning is life is magical. Use your creativity to accomplish whatever you want, and use the unseen forces at your disposal. Okay? Very similar to what you talk about in your story, Laura. Basically, use your imagination, okay? Or creativity. This is another great example. We're gonna skip the sample, but are you familiar with the VeggieTales? You know about them, Rafael?
No.
So the VeggieTales, it's very interesting because it's very subliminal. You think it's a story about cute vegetables, but it's actually, it has a very concealed subliminal agenda to bring children to Christianity. It's like, what? You see all these singing vegetables, they're dancing and singing, but actually it talks about Jesus, about what it means to prayer, what it means to believe in God, etc. So this is example of something very subliminal. I mean, they're not even they're not showing here a artwork of Jesus, they're talking about vegetables. So kids don't even realize they're actually being indoctrinated into Christianity. I'm not saying it's good or bad, it is what it is. It's just example, okay? Now, another 2 examples of subliminal messages is The Brave Little Toaster, half-baked tale of Christian suffering. Again, we're gonna skip the clips because we don't have too much time, but basically it's a story that was written before Toy Story. It's the 1897 animated classic, can simply be read as a story of abandoned household appliances trying to find their way back to their master. Deeper look reveals that the toaster and his friends are really lost souls, aiming to win back God's grace with their intense suffering, involving a horrifying trip to the junkyard that Pixar purloined for Toy Story. They are eventually rewarded by being reunited with him as his new swanky new apartment, otherwise known as heaven. So basically, it's again very kind of religious undertones, very subliminal message of religion, but visualized by household items. Okay, so that's very subliminal. I'm sure kids who watch it have no idea that's the message, but somehow it is going to the subconscious mind. On the right, the movie Frozen. Love is an open closet door. It's basically about lesbians. Okay, again, concealed message in storytelling. As proponents of the Twitter hashtag Give Elsa Girlfriend have noted, the Princess of Arendelle spends most of the Disney fantasy desperately trying to keep a secret she fears will make her a pariah, before finally accepting her true identity in an icy world of fearless abandon and kick-ass show tunes. By the end of the film, it has been firmly established with the discovery that sisterly love trumps traditional romance every time, that orange is not the only fruit. So it's very clear a story about love between girls. Okay, that's another example that not only they are have subliminal messages, but also there is some level of they want to influence their viewers to something. Okay, there is some kind of agenda here. Okay, I'm not saying again it's good or bad. I'm just showing you what is out there. Okay. Now let's look at those examples: Super Mario, Angry Birds, Pokemon, Bratz, Harry Trolls. Do you see here any purpose and any meaning in any of them? What's the purpose of those? Any you guys want to just share? What do you think? What's the purpose of any of them?
Well, I would love to share about trolls because I grew up with them.
Okay.
And, you know, to me, it was otherworldly. And it also, I was really into Planet of the Apes. So there's an element of that, you know, sort of this creature that, you know, isn't a human, but maybe even more human, you know,
Okay.
or I don't know. There's a lot of different meaning behind behind the trolls.
What was the meaning for you?
Well, I was always told it was a good luck, you know, and I came from a domestic violent home. So the story that I'm writing is about my life. But I just wanted to mention that trolls were a way to interact with other kids without, like, it's opposite of brats, because it was like, you know, they didn't have to be sexy or beautiful or rich or any of that. You know what I mean?
You can be ugly too.
You can be ugly and you can be great. You can be
Yeah.
amazing. Same with
Beautiful.
Planet of the Apes.
Excellent.
And my daughter grew up on Bratz. You know, I actually bought them for her. I didn't like doing it, but I bought them for her because she liked them. And you know, I could tell there's a subliminal thing there too. You know, they are all about, you know, power through beauty, it's all about power, you know, with Bratz. So anyway.
Thank you.
But
What about
she's very empowered kid. I don't know if it influenced, but you know.
Thank you for sharing. What about you, Rafael? Which one do you have any? You want to talk about any of those examples?
Maybe Pokemon. It's like a curiosity, the meaning, curiosity, and the adventure to find what is hidden.
Hidden. Okay. What else?
Angry Bird. I don't know. Maybe I see only entertainment.
Entertainment. Okay, fantastic. I mean, I thought about them really hard, and what I found, you know, Super Mario Definite Entertainment, there is some reference to Amanita mushrooms, because we have the white and the red caps here. So there's some element of some kind of trippy, kind of something trippy that could be the influence. In Pokemon, it's really about you know, controlling different forces. I think it was such a successful franchise that kids were obsessed about collecting them, and I think it's about collecting abilities. Like, it's kind of, the analogy is like the kids are feeling they're gaining different abilities. Each Pokemon represents certain abilities, so they'll feel empowered, the children.
Yeah.
So,
also, I grew up on Dungeons and Dragons. It was very similar.
yeah, exactly. Same here. So, okay, home assignment, guys, at 6 p.m. So, number 1, develop further the world you created in the class, or explore a new idea. So it sounds like, Laura, you have something, and Rafael, you want to develop further the cactus and the bird, or you want to work on something else?
Maybe I will try something else.
Okay, fantastic. That's number 1. Number 2, flesh out a few characters from this world you created, utilizing archetypes, and draw those characters. You know, it's up to you how many characters. I'm not going to tell you how many, just whatever you feel drawing, at least draw 1, but you can do more. And each one, I want you to see what kind of archetypes you want to give them. Okay. And obviously, you want to think about a little bit also about the story. Like, if one of your characters' archetype is the innocent or the explorer, what kind of story is going to happen to that character? Okay, so think about those things as well. Number 3, bring to the next class one example of an IP and characters which inspired you. Any medium, it can be a children's book, animation, toy, games, whatever. At least one character that inspired you, and explain why you chose them and what is the purpose and meaning for you. Is that everything is clear?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is pretty much what we have for this upcoming week. And do you guys have any questions?
I do.
Okay.
Okay, so I would really like to see Raphael's work, for one thing. I don't know if you guys, if that's okay. I have
It's
time to
recorded.
see it.
You can see the
okay.
once I'm gonna send you the link of the recorded class. You can see his work. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful work.
Yeah, and I'd also like to see what you're doing now. You know,
Me?
like something you're working on. Yeah.
Well, I share on LinkedIn. Are you on LinkedIn? So I share on LinkedIn pretty much every day. I share a lot of stuff. So just go to my LinkedIn account, and you can see there the stuff I'm working on. Yeah. So
that was one question. I've got more, but if you need to complete the class, I understand.
Well, at least just one more if it's important, whatever is the most important question, like related
No,
to.
I'll just text, I'll just send you I'll just send you questions.
Okay, how about you, Rafael? You have any questions?
Maybe for the next time, I write, but I will prepare more the questions.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have questions in advance. Sometimes the questions, they come as we go through the class. So if something comes to you during the week, feel free to email me and I'll be more than happy to answer. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much,
you.
everybody. It was a pleasure to see you, and I hope you have a very creative and blessed week.
Thank you, you
Thank you.
too.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.